next speaker needs no introduction. It isn't often that a graduate of PS 29 in Brooklyn gets the opportunity to introduce the president of one of America's foremost universities. My mother would be proud. Accordingly, it gives me great pleasure and honor to introduce a man who, during his administration, has led this university to its place as one of America's greatest, and the man who has created an environment, intellectual and open, that has allowed an organization such as Hillel to grow and prosper. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming President John Casteen.
Larry, thank you, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you. One of the rules around here is that if you want something done well, you let the students do it. So most of what I had prepared to say has already been said in more eloquent ways. But I do want to circle back to Hillel by way of a brief comment on the Jewish community and the larger community in which we live, Charlottesville. This town has an extraordinary history of benefiting by the generosity and, in many cases, the self-sacrificing determination to build the public good of what were originally a small number of Jewish families who were here. The preservation of Monticello, as I think most of us know, is the consequence of one family's determination over the course of 3 generations to protect that house for the nation. The Levies who did that, distinguished public servants, but they did other things. The small congregation in Charlottesville in the 19th century had its synagogue because of the generosity of that family. Charlottesville had its first cultural location, the old Opera House, which is just on the court square behind the courthouse on the east side. It's now an office building because the Levies saw a need and chose to fill it by their personal generosity. That has been the history. Personal recognition of needs in the community, of opportunities to benefit others, and a deliberate kind of solution to these issues. Hillel itself, in addition to the kinds of service that you heard described very eloquently and accurately by the 2 students who preceded me, has an extraordinary record in our university and in the community of both welcoming and supporting Jewish students coming from all over the world. It's very helpful to know that Ali is a native of Morocco, that this is not simply a local and parochial community, but it's a global community of Jewish students. Some 1,800 currently enrolled in the university, many active in Hillel. Hillel works with students to develop them as leaders. The extraordinary successes of students associated with Hillel have to do with the way in which Hillel teaches self-governance, the way in which it centers education on the capacity to make sound decisions for oneself and for the community, and then to act. There's always been a bias toward action in Hillel here. And in Brian's time and in the time of other directors of Hillel, and I think also in the future, that has been the hallmark of the place. Those of you who came to the kickoff event for the fundraising for the structure whose beginnings we celebrate today may recall one other kind of service that Hillel has provided over time that I recognize, but let me repeat that. As a first-year student in October of 1961, it was to this building that I came to enroll in the only introductory Hebrew course that was available in town. And I did it because I'm a linguist, not because of a cultural or religious motive. Although in truth, the experience of studying the language, as you know, is in large part the experience of learning the Torah. And that teaching experience, that learning that occurred in Hillel, became a basic part of what I am. It built alliances that have been the fabric of my own lifetime, as well as, I think, of the lifetimes of many others here. Many of those who are assembled today, community members, alumni, parents of our students, have had roles in creating the Brody Jewish Center. I want to thank all of you the empowerment of Hillel's staff by the commitment to the structure, the vote of confidence in our students by the determination to provide the kinds of increased service and learning opportunities that come with the supplementation of the building. Those are important gifts to the community. And then let me speak very briefly about two families whose special generosity has touched our university and our community in ways that would take several hours to tell. Edgar Bronfman and Jan Aronson, extraordinarily generous members of the community. Their challenge grant enabled Hillel to raise significant funds to make the building a reality. And their generous gifts over time to Jewish studies, which really has its origin in one of Edgar's earlier gifts, have supported the academic pursuit of Judaism in the curriculum. The importance of that act at the time when it occurred, at a time when we were forming the broad modern curriculum that has helped to make our faculty and our student body not only current, but capable of greatness in an evolving world, really couldn't be exaggerated. And Edgar, I want to thank you for generosity, for kindness. Jan, for your special contributions. I don't know really what our community would be without the kinds of selfless leadership that you've provided. And then a few words about the Brodys. Nan and Dan have their own extraordinary history with our university. Dan, his father, his grandfather, their sons, Doug and Buck, have all attended the University of Virginia. Dan's father was one of the original founders of Hillel here. So there is a kind of family continuity there that reminds me, as I've heard the stories over the years, of the continuity of concerns that the Levies had when they determined that Jefferson's remains would be held intact for the nation. Dan's grandfather was the founder of PEP, Phi Epsilon Pi, one of the earliest of the Jewish student organizations. I don't really know the entire history of all of the organizations because they have sometimes merged and sometimes separated, but the continuity of that kind of affiliation has been a distinctive part of what worked here for our Jewish students. And the Brodys are engaged in the university in every way, in athletics, in the arts, in support for the study of business, almost any activity that matters to us as a community has mattered to the Brodys as a family. The Brodys saw the increasing prosperity of the Jewish community of students here. They saw in that an opportunity for Hillel, and because of that observation, they determined to support and to lead in the development of the resources to build this new part of the structure. They gave the first gift, and they have continued to work throughout the enterprise to ensure the success of the campaign. This is in a way a statement that it has worked. No matter what one's religious background, we have some ritual for welcoming children into the community. Think of this as a kind of christening, as a place where we say this is ours and we commit to this for the future. All of the rights that I know for the welcoming children into families and communities have to do with promises made by adults with regard to care and feeding of the young and the maturation of the young and the traditions that are important. This is a commitment not only to students of this period, but to future generations. This is, for our time in the future, the obvious analog to the commitments the Levies made to build a Jewish community in Charlottesville. But this community travels around the world. It comes from Morocco, it goes to the Holy Land, it goes to Asia, it carries the products of education here around the globe. In our time, there really is no higher mission for an entity that's dedicated to the well-being of our students. So welcome, new baby, and thrive.